Graceful yet imposing is George Washington Bridge. Spanning the Hudson River from upper New York, it leads to the New Jersey shore and the pond. But New York is not only steel and stone, it is people too. Millions of beating hearts, lights and shadows, night and day. A strange cosmopolitan paradox. A city that never sleeps. It's a wonder city.
The UN Secretariat and UN's most important meetings should not be hosted by a country that is difficult to enter depending on your identity.
To start on a playing field where it's just like, oh, you just can't come. You're Somali, no, or no, you're this. We're not sure you can get a visa. It just seems to be difficult to start with. It shouldn't be a default to start in a place that isn't welcoming, isn't always welcome, isn't consistently welcoming, because that's not on the mission. I mean, the mission of the United Nations, which is multilateralism.
Isn't that the mission of the United States? So everybody can participate, be part of it. So now, example, there's a ban in Somalia, so it's hard for them to come.
So maybe let me jump on this. I mean, I think there's like we may need to consider like a kind of a calculation of, it's like here you're able to mobilize political support in New York, but we are losing people who wants to travel to New York, let's say from Central African Republic, but they have like visa issues, they cannot come. It's a question I think we may need to actually pose to leaders about. They should, how can we bring them actually to Central African Republic? It's like if we change the places, we are going to, if we change the meeting location, we are going to lose donors' participation in these events. And I think that's it's not an easy.
But isn't it fair to certain countries allowed to come in and certain countries it's hard to get in? So it's kind of discrimination again. So everybody's not going to be part of it.
If I may say something, there are two ways of looking at it. One is, who is the person to address this? Is it the member state or is it the United Nations? Knowing that, you also need to factor the realistic aspect of it, the political goodwill, what Ali is saying. So it's not about, it can be moved. That's something that we just have to be realistic. Even if we were to say that it's not fair, it doesn't give access because of the procedures and mechanisms that are there, that are instilled in the country, it still does not change the fact that it will not move.
How are you guys going to resolve then? So certain part.
I have very strong controversial feelings about this. I think that we should not all have the decision-making power at the UN, so it doesn't matter where it is. If we had good policy making, you wouldn't have to come to New York to get things done in Afghanistan. We should work to make sure that the solutions are found in the countries where people are facing challenges, because you want to respond to the needs of the people on the ground, and randomly having people come to New York to make a 4-minute intervention that's super politicized, that's governed by a lot of different considerations of what you can and can't say, makes it a little bit more difficult. And maybe an alternative would be to have the UN institute more policies that allow for country-level decisions to be made, rather than everyone having to spend time, money, and resources and harm the environment to come here.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. However, it's called the United Nations. It's uniting all the nations, meaning it's a focal point for all these people from different parts of the world to come to that meeting place and speak about their issues and see if what, for example, Rhonda is saying can actually change from where I come from, or what I say can change from where, Mona comes from, right? So meaning it's more of a neutral place. From what you're talking about, it sounds more of our local level. It's government, private sector, and everyone involved in that particular country to now ensure whatever discussion has been made translates back to the society and to the community. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it won't do that. It will. The whole point of coming as a united nation is for us to be in the conversation of what's happening around us, for us to be aware and to know what exactly do we need to do to be at the level where Ali's country is, or what do I need to do to help Kenya to be in a certain position. So I feel like that's what we should also factor
Ali
in.
cannot participate in that meeting, how you guys gonna decide how his country is gonna be if he's not allowed to be part of it?
The United Nations made it clear that they just, they speak about things, but they can't make the country do it. They can't make the member state do it. So for example, if, like you said, if Ali doesn't participate, it doesn't mean there's no other delegate. That's why they put more than one delegation, right? Whether they'll pick one from the UN agency or they'll pick one from the government, there has to be someone who's representing that country. It's just now the person to account for is where maybe it might bring an issue, but there has to be someone to follow up on that conversation.
Who will follow? Like,
Well, it's now for
is that promise, like.
I mean, maybe we can like attach this to this high-level political forum. It's about sustainable development goals, where countries got agreed to have common goals, and they want to kind of implement those goals in their country. So, in that sense, I mean, like having a United Nation, especially at a global level representation of countries, it's somehow non-producer. It can be effective to a certain extent, but I guess like the question was more about inclusion of people who are not representing their states, and maybe we can even ask a question about, I mean, the people who are coming here, what is their representative power? When we if I want to go back to the should we do it here, since people are not going to be able to, I mean, should we do like the global events here in New York when a lot of people are not able to enter this country? We need to move these events to places where there's like freedom of movement and those areas where more people can easily access. And I mean, and I think, I'm sorry, I talked too long, but
No, it's interesting.
But I want to say one more thing. Maybe is it economic to do it here? I mean, it's good for New York City. It's a very expensive city. Why do you try to bring, especially like civil society representatives, into like one of the most expensive city in the world?
Yeah, I can actually say this. I can't comment on the aspect of the expense of it being in New York, but I can say that sometimes I feel like it's the people who are sent to represent that have to blame or to appreciate. Because I don't think that anyone can stop you if you say that what is happening is wrong. I feel like that's what lacks in our forums, in the forums in the United Nations. People, it's like they're scared to say they're going through something. So it's more of a silent suffering. So like you said about restrictions, that people are restricted to come to the country because of this and that. Who is it their obligation to say that? Isn't it the country that is suffering through that? And isn't this a platform that unites all the nations? Meaning you get to be heard, you get to experience with other countries, you have a platform. So it's up to you to maximize on that space and actually get your intentions heard and what exactly you're experiencing and what do you feel is your frustration. It just becomes another conference, another talk in another room, but no one has that accountability of saying, whatever I'm committing here, I'm going to action it. Whether I'm with you or I'm not with you, I will still do it.